Today, the video cipher is no more secure than it was a year ago. Or I guess when you look back, it's no more secure than it was the first day it was made. MACOM made an interesting product, and it possibly could be made secure. It's very possible that you programmers will one day be really paid for your programming. But today, as it stands, the video cipher is not secure. It's been totally compromised. Now, before we get into today's tape, I want you to recognize one real fact. If you get nothing out of this tape, nothing else other than the following fact, please remember this. That just a week or so ago, Ecosphere was charged with trying to ship out 9,000 video ciphers out of the country into the Caribbean. That's 9,000. It's one corporation, and they frankly had just received those boards. Well, if GI's contention that they only made 300,000 to 400,000 video ciphers, then that 9,000 that was seized by customs represents over 3% of the total video ciphers in the marketplace. Well, I can assure you of this. That does not represent 3%. It didn't even represent 1%, because the actual number of video ciphers made to date exceeds 1.3 million. Slightly more than 300,000 are authorized. Therefore, there are almost 1 million, 1.1 million video ciphers out there today that nobody knows where they are, who owns them, and what has been done to them. But we can all be assured of one thing. They're all watching programming. Watching your programming that you're not getting paid for because you didn't want to listen to the reality. You didn't want to listen to us here or other people that are trying to tell you the same thing. That what GI is doing to you shouldn't be done to anybody. They're deceiving you and they're cheating you out of people that would like to pay for programming. Nobody that takes your programming wants to steal it. They want to pay. They just want to pay fairly. And when that day comes, hopefully, most of these video ciphers can be brought back to life, and you will get paid for your programming. But today's tape is going to show you the different ways the video cipher has been compromised. You will see that some of the compromises, you will never get paid for programming for those boxes because they no longer have any way of paying you. But yet there are some ways that still leave a video cipher basically intact without destroying the valuable information contained in it. We will start with an explanation of the video cipher and some of the precautions that you must take in dealing with it. But before we do, I want to make you aware of two things. There are basically two forms of technology in the field today. And you will hear people refer to them as the 010 technology and the 0181 technology or the 018 technology. General Instruments, I guess almost a year ago, changed from the 010 technology to 018 technology, assuring you programmers that that technology could not be compromised. Well, indeed it has been, as you will see. But for those of you that are looking at this tape to understand exactly what's going on in the video cipher world, you must understand those two distinct differences. 010 and 0181. They're totally different. You will now see some of the ways that they have been compromised. First, we're going to show you some precautions you might want to take in dealing with the video cipher.
Static. Most people take it really for granted. You know, they walk across the floor and they touch a knob or something and zap, they get a little shock and they say, woo! Well, let me just tell you something. Video cipher boards, all types of computer boards, are all sensitive to static electricity. Why? Because they have gates and arrays of transistors and things of that nature that are so designed and so small that a static charge will jump a gate or something to that effect, or actually what they call is a substrate and stuff like that, and destroy the transistor and or gate or whatever. And what that does is destroys your board, basically. The VideoCipher has basically, and I'll show you here, 4 different MOSFET chips. One is the U19, U7, U20, also U13, which is the SD5000. I find that one to go the worst. Basically what you'll see on the screen is a lot of jiggity and jaggedy, and you won't get any video, and that's usually the cause of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little demonstration for you now to show you how easy it is to cause some static. All I'm going to do now is touch this little device. It's basically a static indicator. And I'm going to rub my feet back and forth on the floor. And I want to show you what happens. See me lighting that thing up? All I'm doing is just rubbing my feet across the floor. That's enough static to ruin one of those chips. Now, what I'm going to show you is a static mat. This here is a static mat which has a layer of carbon underneath that basically takes any static off your person and puts it to ground. They also use a static strap. What you do, you just put this on your wrist, like this. Voila! You're, for all intents and purposes, grounded. Now watch when I rub my feet across the floor. Nothing. If you're going to work on computer boards, you're going to work on VideoCiphers, you're going to work on any of the integral technology of today, please take static precautions. Put humidity in the air. Work on a tiled floor. Work in your bare feet. If you work in your bare feet, most everything goes to ground. I'm not saying it's the best method, but if you can't do anything else, do it in your bare feet, because you're not going to have any type of insulating material between yourself and the floor surface. And that's usually what causes a problem. Thank you.
The VideoCipher is just a box with some components on it. The only thing that makes one VideoCipher different from another man's VideoCipher is its identification number and its seed keys. They are hidden. They are contained within the VideoCipher, and you will see shortly how to get to those seed keys. One of the things GI did was make it extremely easy, whether it was intentional or totally out of stupidity. They made it very easy for you to get the seed keys out of 010 boxes. Now, people that know the VideoCipher well claim that there's no way that GI could have been so stupid. In actuality, it was MACOM, because they were the first ones that owned the patent and started marketing it. So these engineers, the ones that have compromised the VideoCiphers to date, looked at the old technology and they said, you know, it was so easy to get the seed keys out of this machine, and so many other areas of the VideoCipher were so well protected that the holes that were left in the VideoCipher had to have been intentional. Now, maybe it was just an employee at General Instruments, or actually MACOM, or maybe it was the corporation itself. Someday, maybe a court will figure that one out. But the 018 boards, the newer boards, were more difficult. And that's what's prompted this new round of discovery of the VideoCipher, to understand it. And one of the things you must know in viewing the following is that there are, in dealing with the numbers inside the VideoCipher, your seed keys and your identification number, and everything that makes up a VideoCipher, it works on somewhat of a binary system. It goes from 0 to 9, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. No G, no H, no nothing. That's where it stops. You can do a great many things with the VideoCipher once you understand how it works. We're going to show you some of that right now.
Basically what a Lodestar chip is a device that allows you to read any information inside of a blue board, you know, 010 series, or it allows you to write any information anywhere in an 010 board. As soon as the technology, I'm sure, comes out for the 018s or is more readily available in a single software package, i.e. U30, I'm sure that'll be loaded into this thing too. We're now going to look at the standard setup screens of the Lodestar. What I'm going to show you is each setup screen individually and basically explain it. I'm now going to hit setup, N1, which is a standard setup in a normal working video cipher. Shows you the ID number, the signal level, the service ID, and, of course, it says location set. Setup 2 basically takes U7 and downloads it to U20. And by going to setup 4, which allows me to view U20 or any location inside of the video cipher, I can see exactly what is in U7 RAM. The setup 3 allows me just to see what is going on in regards to seed keys and displays them directly on the screen. Setup 4, as I told you earlier, will allow me to view any area of the video cipher. Let's go to that location 6600, which I dumped the seed key information. And what basically you see there is everything from location 0 to location 3F in U7 RAM. Setup 5 allows me to modify any area of the video cipher. Let's say I wanted to change the service ID from Alpha 5 to Charlie 4. Let's do that. Setup 5, 6247. Hit the Enter button. And we want to go to Charlie 4. I hit the right-hand arrow and the 3, which is a Charlie. And hit the button 4 and hit Enter. Now I've just changed the service ID to Charlie 4, as you can see here, by just hitting the Setup 1 screen. But it's still authorized because it doesn't know where it is. Let me hit the Help button and we'll get it so it doesn't respond. There we go. Scrambled missing. Okay. Let's put the service ID back. 6247. Enter. We'll bring it back to Alpha 5. Enter. Hit the Help, which does a nice reset. Brings it back. Setup 6 allows me to change the ID number to anything I want. What you do is you enter the ID number to whatever you want. Let me redo that for you. Let's say 01051234. Hit the Enter key, and then what you do is you enter in seed key 0 by using the designator 00, and whatever you want. After you do that, hit the Enter key, go to seed key 1, and do the same. Since I don't want to enter another ID number, I'll just do an abort. Setup 7 allows me to clear only the key area in U20, meaning that the authorization mask and the monthly keys are cleared so that I can enter in new ones. Setup 8 allows me to clear entirely U20 from location 6000 to 67FF. As you can see here, we got good information in there. And if I do a setup 8, it'll clear it all out. This is also good for dealers that want to clear out garbage information that made a box not work. Sometimes if the service ID is anything other than Charlie 4, D0, 00, Alpha 5, the box will never authorize. So that's very helpful. So you could say that this is almost the ultimate in a repair chip. Thank you.
GI's engineers were good, but unfortunately the pirates were better. They had an incentive, money. Yes, money is what has brought everyone to steal, and money is why the video cipher is broken today. The money that the pirates make on a video cipher, they probably couldn't make in 2 or 3 years by honest labor, and they can make it in a couple of weeks just by figuring out another way around the video cipher. And what's the consumer's incentive? The consumer's incentive, again, goes back to programming pricing. He doesn't want to pay more than what he thinks he should. And I can tell you now, the consumer thinks he should pay about $200 a year for that programming, all of it. You presently, or you programmers, are presently asking up to $1,000 for that programming. It's absolutely absurd. There's no reason. You can't justify asking that kind of dollars for it. You don't do anything for it, except do the billing. And Lord knows there are enough people out here that want to do the billing for you. You can make a handsome profit because, again, those 1.3 million subscribers, or people that have VideoCiphers, would love to pay for your programming. Instead of collecting it from 10 or 15,000 customers, potentially you could be collecting it from a couple of million. All you have to do is understand why people steal it. Well, how do they do it? How are the keys being pulled out of the 0181 technology that General Instruments claimed couldn't be done? Well, there are basically three companies doing it. The Western technology, which is either John's Electronics or Advanced Logic. The trouble with that technology is that once it pulls the keys from an 0181 board, they're no longer there in U7, which is where the keys are stored. It's a problem that you have with that particular puller, but nevertheless it does work and it is there. The other one is from CTS and also sold by the Blues Brothers. That's a pretty fast method. It dumps immediately, and it is totally recallable. It does not destroy them out of U7. And of last, you have the more expensive technology coming from the South, and it's primarily sold as a key or a battery archival system. It not only pulls the keys from 018 boards, it also sends them back into U7 when you have to rewrite it. So there are the three primary methods that are used out there, and we'll review them now.
What we have here is a key extraction system developed on the West Coast called the Western Blues. It's a system that uses a small board to emulate U7, and the board preparation work required is fairly straightforward. You do your standard epoxy removal on U30 and install a blue key reader IC. You remove basically 1/2 of the epoxy from U7 using a non-conductive tool because you want the unit to remain in factory mint condition during the entire preparation process. And then you proceed to install this little plug rig where you attach 2 wires to the side of U30. So, as it stands here, we have 2 connections to make on pins 19 and 20 of U7, and then 6 connections on the other side of U7. 2 connections on U5, and 1 connection to P1, and we install, as the process of hooking this all up, a small capacitor between pins, between the ICs U28 and U29. Okay, and the last step in extracting your keys is to, with an ungrounded, free-floating soldering iron, to attach to pin 18 on U7 with the power on, and to pin 14. Now you're ready to extract your keys, and you simply then, last step is to cut the capacitor before punching up setup 2 to inspect your work, and then setup 3 to start the key extraction process.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to extract some keys. Earlier this evening, we already extracted some actual keys from a board, have the unit authorized, and then cloned into another blue board. What we have written into this program is a function 4, which is basically a practice function for dealers that wish to work with just one board while they get used to the idea of soldering very carefully onto U7, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do here is just simply get setup 3 going, so you can see what. First we'll do setup 2, which gives you your basic status. As long as you see the FF in the second line, you know you've done your job, and the ID in the seed keys in U7 are indeed intact. And then to extract them with our particular Western Blues technology, you just do setup and 3, and the program then proceeds to go into U7 and byte by byte find each part of each key from 0 through 3. The whole process takes about 12 minutes on average. There we have the first byte of key 0 has been found. And the reason we do it a little bit slower than some other methods is that we want our keys to be perfect every time. And so we have an extremely sophisticated computer checksum program working, checking the authentication of every single byte 3 different times, 3 different ways. As a result, every time this unit starts off at setup 2, if you have an FF reading on your screen, you know you have intact keys in your U7. And then when you do setup 3, you know your results in 12 minutes' time will be absolutely true. You don't have to worry about any corrupt bytes being in your seed keys. And so then you just proceed to take those seed keys, put them into, traditionally the route to go is to put them into, write them into a purple unit and have the unit authorized, and then just simply apply the information from the authorization, such as your monthly authorization code, and apply that to whatever technology you're currently using on your, for your Blue Run work. The reason we use the 010 board is basically convenience and a little bit of laziness. We could very well write them directly into the blue board, but that requires using, or let's say creating new writing software, because we would have to write directly into U7 in order to feel comfortable about having the blue unit being able to function properly for reauthorization. Since we have this purple technology, and everyone usually has 1 or 2 purple boards laying about the place, and they're used to working with them, it's very convenient and very easy to just simply have your seed keys put into that unit, and you read off your monthly keys from that unit, and then just write that data down on a sheet of paper, and then enter it in at the appropriate data points in your blue loaders and your blue run chips. And that's basically it. I suppose there will come a time very shortly, probably, where there are dealers that don't have any purple units lying about. Well, at that point in time, when the marketplace says we need something, then of course we'll accommodate.
Rolling anytime you're ready.
Okay. What we're going to be demonstrating is the CTS key archiver for the latest series of VideoCipher boards. In order to do this, we take a new VideoCipher. The security screw can be removed pretty easily with a standard 150-watt gun. You heat it for about 10 or 12 seconds. You don't want to heat it too much, or you're going to blow it right through the board. Just just until it starts rocking.
Well, I'm going home then. Hey, Jenny.
Once you've got the plastic softened up, small screwdriver right in the crack. And out comes the security screw. Open the board, removed from the cage, lay it down on a clean work surface, preferably something that will not conduct static. What we're going to be doing is removing the epoxy from U30. We're going to be removing epoxy from some pins on U19. And we're going to be removing the epoxy from C27, this little capacitor just under this last control. The method for removing the epoxy is going to be the old heat gun, and in order to keep the rest of the board fairly clear, we make up a little heat shield, believe it or not, out of just a little piece of cardboard. This is a box from an old Chaparral Polaroider. We're going to heat one area at a time and concentrate on cleaning that area off. You don't want to get too close, or else you're going to burn up the board. The heat's got to be done at a slow enough pace so that it transmits down into the epoxy at the lower levels. The heat gun we're using is a 1500 watt heat gun on the low setting, which puts out about 500 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. Any more than that, and you're going to start taking out parts on the board. A good indicator that you're right on that temperature threshold is the fact that the cardboard will start to turn brown. If anybody remembers, the flash point of paper is 451 degrees Fahrenheit. So you know that you're getting pretty close to that temperature when the cardboard goes. Now, once that area is nice and hot, we take a standard utility knife on a nice steep angle. You don't want to drag it across 10 or 12 pins at once. You want to enter it right on the indication given by the outline of the chip. As you can see, that cleans it up real quick and real nice. If you want, you can get in there with a ceramic tool and just continue to scrape down a little bit. You do not want to go down to the board. Most people do their damage to these boards when they try removing all the epoxy. You don't want to do that. Put another cut. Get up underneath this epoxy. And there we are, opened up. Nice, clean, simple. You get in there with your non-metallic tool, you can fine-tune a little bit. While the epoxy's still warm, of course, once it gets hot, it goes right back to its hardened state. I'm sorry, once it gets cool. Make the tops nice and clean. All right, that's it for that chip. We're going to repeat the process, taking the same piece of cardboard, and we're going to stick it right on what is this, U19. And we're going to do the same thing here. Once you got that nice and hot, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to locate the outline of the chip. It's kind of hard to see probably on camera, but you can see that the chip is right in here. We're going to cut alongside of it, and we're going to, there we go, here's the pins. Again, keep your angle steep on the knife. You want to remove the epoxy about up to that capacitor. We're only interested in pins 2 and 10 anyway. Also, when you're removing the epoxy at this location, be careful. There are other components located in the board, which I'll show you in a second. Once you've got the bulk of the epoxy out, you come back to your non-metallic tool for the in-close work. All right, once again, you see we've exposed all the pins. We're interested in numbers 2 and 10. And again, there are components located down in here. There's a resistor here, and there's one here. So when you're taking this epoxy off, you want to be careful not to break them. You want to come in nice and steep with the knife. You want to come up under it, and that's it. The third area we're going to open up now is this capacitor. Once again, we're going to heat it. I'm going to shield it with the cardboard. Something like that. You have to hold this with one hand while you hit it with the heat gun on the other. You want to keep the heat away from the other components at all times. Excessive heat is the biggest reason these boards are damaged when sockets are being installed. All right, after we're done heating that area, we're going to make 2 incisions with our little utility knife. We're going to come directly in line with this adjustment right here. The reason is we want to give ourselves plenty of room to clear the epoxy off this capacitor. You do not want to go all the way down to the board. You're going to have to be careful when you do it. You do not want to cut the board behind it, and you do not want to break the capacitor. But the epoxy in this entire area will flake right out. Give it a little bit of patience. It may even take a second or a third application with the heat gun. But when you're done, this is another one of those non-metallic tools. They're ceramic. It's a little bit smaller. It works much better in a tighter area like this. When I'm done, I'm going to expose the actual point on the board that this capacitor is soldered to. That'll give us enough room to work. All right. I'm being very careful not to scrape the board. There are very small traces down there. If you damage them, you throw the board away. All right, I'm going to give this one more shot with the heat. We just gave it a little bit more heat. We're going to concentrate on getting the epoxy out from all around this cap. Nice big work area, plenty of room to work, plenty of room to breathe, so to speak. All right, I can now see the 2 points I wanted to see. We need to cut this at the right leg, by the way. Nice fine pair of needle nose pliers. You can get in here and clear out the epoxy from between the legs. And if you can focus in on that, you can see that we've exposed the lighting okay? We've exposed the right terminal of this capacitor, nice and clean. I'm now going to get a little pair of dikes. I'm going to cut this lead about a 32nd of an inch above the board, leaving enough room to rejoin the capacitor later, and yet to be able to attach a wire to it now. I'm going to fold it up over to one side on its left leg. I'm going to leave the little stub of the right leg exposed, and then I'm going to throw some solder on it.
Can't see.
Just want to leave a little solder ball here so that you can attach to it in a few moments. The next thing we want to do is we want to tin the pins that we're going to be utilizing. Pin 2 and 10 . In addition to that, we're going to pick up power from U9, pin 7, pin 14 on U9, point 00 on the board. There's two little feed-throughs here. Either one of them will do. Just put a little ball of solder on that. We'll be attaching a wire to that in a moment. And then on U31 over here, pin 3. I'm also going to tin up the entire U30.
Can't see.
All right. We're just going to do one pin here on camera, and then we'll pause, because I think they'll get the idea. We'll come back when we do the socket. You just want to... Okay, we've got U30 tinned up. We're going to bend pin 20 over, get it up out of the way on a new socket. By the way, the socket you want to use, you want short pins, pretty flexible, good quality socket. You're going to need two little pieces of jumper wire, about 2 or 3 inches. Pin 20, we're going to tack solder one of those wires. Fairly secure. Just make sure it doesn't short out to the sides. Once you've done that, you take your socket, you bend the pins in just a bit, the edge of a table.
Can't see.
So that when you're done, you've got about a 20-30 degree angle on them. It keeps it tighter in place when you're putting it on the board. Now it's just a matter of soldering up the pins, one for one. Tack solder your corners to start.
Can't see.
All right, let me get this one started. Don't use too much solder. Apply just enough heat so that the solder flows freely. This will be your physical as well as your electrical connection.
Okay.
All right. All 28 pins have now been soldered. Actually 27 because pin 20 is still floating up here. We've got the wire going under to the original chip. We've got the socket pin bent out that we're going to connect to in a second. The first connection we're going to make is from pin 20 to 28. Both on the bottom. And then we're going to take a second jumper from pin 14 we're going to come around and we're going to attach this
Can't see.
to the floating pin left on the chip socket. Okay. We've now disabled the original chip and enabled our chip socket. Next, we're going to install the archive device. The instructions are very specific. They want you to install the wires in an exact method. I suggest that you not follow them. There are reasons for that. The reasons are so that the board is properly grounded. It's going to be a bit difficult to get on camera because I'm going to be all over the place here. We're going to install the black wire first, providing a ground. And that goes to pin 7 of U9.
Can't see it.
The second connection will be pin 14 of U9 and red. Third connection will be the green to point 0, 0. You doing okay? The fourth connection will be the blue wire to pin 2 of U19.
Can't see.
Connection number 5 is the yellow wire to pin 10 of U19. Connection number 6 is the orange wire to pin 3 of U31. And last but not least, the white wire goes to the little stub we left hanging down here. I'm going to have to lay it down for this, so you'll have to take my word for it. Okay. The device is fully installed on the board. And at this point, in order to keep things a little safer, we're going to put it back in the cage. Next, is we're going to install the archive utility chip. This is a chip provided with the archiver. When I use chips a lot, in and out, I'll put a second socket in, a short pin socket, so that you're not running the long pins of a standard chip all the way down into a socket and then stressing the mechanical connections you made when you soldered the socket over the chip. This goes in nice and easy. Just make sure your pins are straight. And if you want to take it out, it comes out nice and easy. Here we are, it's all hooked up. We're now going to test to make sure that the board is still intact from all the epoxy removal and soldering that we've done. First thing is make sure that the switch on the archive device is in the off position. Secondly, make sure your VideoCipher unit is off. You can connect, well, I use this extension device so that we don't have to work right in the unit. Thirdly, plug the VC2 unit in on a VC channel. Your screen will blank. Check your ID number with setup 1. Record the ID number. All right, we're now going to go through the process of actually extracting the keys. Setup, you can see the menu. Display unit ID, which we just did. Extract 018 keys, display 018 keys. We're going to use those two sections now. The method is to turn the switch on the device, which you saw previously. The indicator will come on. Do exactly as it says. Hit number 2. The screen will flash. You turn the switch off. Hit setup. On the screen, you now see the unit ID number and the 0, 1, 2, and 3 keys. That's all there is to it. It gives you the keys. You can archive them. Protect yourself against whatever may or may not happen. At least you have the information. The board is left completely intact. There is no change in the ID number. There is no damage done to your keys. They are left in the board. There is no damage done anywhere other than the fact that you have made a copy of your keys, which isn't really a damage. Now, just to show you how we disconnect this, we're going to come back to the board. We're going to power down. The wires must be disconnected in the reverse order in which they were connected. The white wire must come off first, then the orange, yellow, blue, green, red, and of course last is the black, the ground. Take the archiver, put it on the side. Do not turn the board on until you reconnect. Let me see if I can get this up in the air for you. You must reconnect your capacitor. Tin the stub you left on one side. Bend it back down. Just solder them up. And everything should be fine in there. The next thing you want to do is you want to remove the archive chip. This is what I told you before about taking out the socket within a socket. It just pops right out. You have two choices at this point. You can remove the wire on pin 28, put a little piece of tape on it and let it hang that'll enable the internal chip once again. Or you can install a duplicate of the original chip, a stock 018 chip, which does nothing more than make the board function as it did when you opened it up. It's a duplicate of the chip that comes originally in the VideoCiphers. They're all the same. We're going to now go back to the screen and show that the board is exactly what it was before. Blanked out screen. This board is not authorized. It's a brand new board right out of a unit. Hit setup, number 1, and you can see it's just as it was when it came out of the board, out of the box. Okay. What we're going to do now is demonstrate the cloning process with this new procedure. Previously, we extracted the keys of an 018 board. We copied them down along with the ID number. Of course, at the same time, you would take the monthly information, which is available through a number of different methods. It could be done with the extractor when that's hooked up. You can do it after the board is authorized with a keys or us. Either way, you'll get your monthly information, and you can put that into the chip as well. Let's go through the process now of setting up a chip. Of course, you need your software, which is in the machine. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load in our program, which is the loader or the RAM. This reprograms the board to the new information. This is pretty similar to any EEPROM programmer you'll find. We're loading in the program now from disk into the buffer. We're going to go directly into the substitute command, which allows us to change the information on an existing file. The ID number goes in first, and it goes in the forward direction as opposed to some programs which require it to be put in reverse. The ID number two bits at a time. This is the information that was previously removed from the board. To the service ID, which is located at 0266, which should be the current month and the A5 authorization in the reverse order. Next, the monthly for this month in location 0100. All right, that gives us our monthly information. And last but not least, we have our seed keys. They go in at location 2000. They go in 7 bytes at a time, and then in zeros. For example, the first key is 4505 0D 62 04 E3 41. Now that's a 7 bytes. Now we put a 0, 0 in there. We continue with our second key. That's 7. 2 more zeros. Oops. We did make a mistake though. Let me back up. More zeros. And now the last key. And of course we finish off with the double 0 at 201F. We get out of there. We set our chip maker up to blow the chip properly. Place the chip in the EEPROM burner and make a copy.
Go.
This procedure will normally take about a minute as the EEPROM burner loads information into it. You get the verification, the fact that it's okay, all the way through to location 3FFF, which is the last location in a 128K EEPROM. That's chip number 1. The second chip that we have just made is the run chip. And that chip is the one that goes in the U30 socket and stays in there as a final operating chip. It's the Three Musketeer type chip, except it's got a new twist to it. There are no keys and no ID or no monthly information in the chip. All that information is already loaded into the box by the loader chip which we've made earlier. What we're going to do now is take these chips, we're going to put them in a board, we're going to show you how that operates. Here we are back at the board. This is the board we had pulled the keys out of previously. Chip socket installed, jumper wires to enable the socket in place, all of the wiring removed, and most important, before you do power it up, that the capacitor be reconnected down here where we put that white wire before. Connect it up to the VideoCipher. Power off, always off when you're making your connections. This is the load chip that we made. Insert it in the socket. Turn the VideoCipher unit on. On the screen, you will see plain old VideoCipher signal. This is a silent loader. You leave it in here for about 30 seconds. It's doing its thing. It does not give indication, as some other loaders do, where it tells you it's writing data or the screen flashes. You get none of those indications. What it's doing now is it's loading in the monthly keys, the seed keys, the ID number, and all the other good stuff it needs to make this board a enable the socket in place, all of the wiring removed, and most important, before you do power it up, that the capacitor be reconnected down here where we put that white wire before. Connect it up to the VideoCipher. Power off, always off when you're making new connections. This is the load chip that we made. Insert it in the socket. Turn the VideoCipher unit on. On the screen, you will see plain old VideoCipher signal. This is a silent loader. You leave it in here for about 30 seconds. It's doing its thing. It does not give indication, as some other loaders do, where it tells you it's writing data or the screen flashes. You get none of those indications. What it's doing now is it's loading in the monthly keys, the seed keys, the ID number, and all the other good stuff it needs to make this board a copy of whatever we had put into this chip before. All right, I believe about 30 seconds has passed. We're going to turn the power off on the VideoCipher. We're going to remove that chip, and we're going to put the second chip we made in, which was the run chip. This chip I do not double socket because it's going to live in this board. Okay, chip's in the socket, noting pin polarity, making sure that the keyway is up. Power up the VideoCipher. You'll see we have video, audio,
I think I overdid.
setup 1, shows no ID number, it's fully secured, it's active, authorized as an A5, your location is set. It's truly a cloned board using the keys that we had just pulled out with the extractor.
Where do we get the power to create?
It will work on all services that use the A5 authorization. That's the setup 0 screen showing the authorized status, 24 A5 authorization. The error bits on the audio are where they belong. Everything is functioning as a normal board would.
Is that we hook on with our key extraction to archive the keys out of it, the seed keys. Then we remove the battery, install a new one, and then take and reload the 4 seed keys in U7 over here with the device on this end. And when we're removing extracting the keys, this unit has a pull and a push. When it pulls, it takes a copy of U20 static RAM, holds it up here, and then when we reinsert it, we can put right back the stock static RAM. We do not need a VideoCipher signal. As you notice, there is no satellite signal hooked up to this, and you notice when I reinserted the keys, I had the board completely unplugged from the unit. It requires absolutely no power whatsoever from the cage. The case doesn't. This unit powers the whole thing, and it makes it an absolute beautiful tool to replace batteries.
What happens is it works just like a normal box, whereas it has an ID number. It receives the data meant for that ID number off the air. It stores that data, and when you would normally try to come up with what they call the key build process, I think I also explained that earlier, well, what happens now is it takes that information that it has stored in U20. It also takes the information it has in regards to seed keys that are in high order RAM of U20, and it does the computation, or the DES computation, outside of U7. U7 in the new boards really serve no useful purpose. They can't be utilized as like the old ones. So basically what happens is this whole key build process, okay, is being done outside of U7 between U30, U20, and U19. This key build process comes up with that common monthly key. And that common monthly key is the same in any box for a given service ID. And it works just like that in a wizard, except it doesn't care about the authorization data, it doesn't care about all that other stuff. It just does its job when it's done. Can I tell you? What happens now is basically once all the keys are found, it says it. All keys are found and displays them on the bottom of the screen, as you can see here. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to load these up in a standard 010 board and authorize the unit and show that this is not BS, it is true, and that the programmers should definitely look into this, and if they want a demonstration, please feel free to contact me at Lee Hadlock Inc., and I'll be glad to show you. Okay. Go to 0. There we go, 0. Key 00 is Fox. You want to read them off?
Sure.
Fox, Charlie.
1 Baker.
1 Bravo.
1 Bravo. Charlie 7.
Charlie 7.
5 8.
5 8.
2 Delta.
2 yes Delta.
0 2.
0 2.
4 3.
4 3. Enter 0 1. Okay.
Okay. 0 7.
0 7.
Baker 1.
Bravo 1.
Bravo 1, right. 2 Bravo.
2 Bravo.
5 6.
5 6.
Delta Bravo.
Delta Bravo.
8 2.
8 2.
2 8.
2 8. Enter 0 2. Okay.
Delta Charlie.
Delta Charlie.
7 Frank.
7 Fox.
Fox. You can tell who took their Morse code and who didn't. 4 5.
4 5. Army.
4 6.
4 6.
Alpha Charlie.
Alpha Charlie.
6 5.
6 5.
7 8.
7 8.
Delta 9.
Delta 9.
Edward 3.
Edward 3. Echo 3. Okay.
6 Frank.
6 Fox.
Fox. Okay. 1 2.
1 2.
What do you call it? Edward 3.
No, Echo.
Echo 3.
4 Fox.
Fox.
4 Fox.
Getting there, Lee.
Yeah.
And Echo 4.
Oh my
Echo
God, he
4.
made it.
All right, let's go
I
back.
don't know how many more to put in.
That's what it was. Alpha 1. Set up 2. Set up 3. Want to check them?
Okay.
Neat thing about this is this
I'll read 'em
freezes
off,
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Fox Charlie 1 Bravo Charlie 7 5 8 2 Delta 0 2 4 3 0 7 Bravo 1 2 Bravo 5 6 Delta Bravo 8 2 2 8. Delta Charlie 7 Fox 4 5 4 6 Alpha Charlie 6 5 7 8 Delta 9 Echo 3 6 Fox 1 2 Echo 3 4 Fox Echo 4.
Go.
And help does a reset, which is nice. All right, let me go set up 5 62 47. Enter. I'm going to put an Alpha 5 in there. Enter. 6223. Enter. I'm going to put a Delta 0 in there. Enter.
What are you putting in? What is this?
What we're doing here is just putting in a few little extra bytes in the monthly authorization field.
So it's authorized.
Just so it authorizes very cleanly and quickly.
Wait, I don't
It's
understand.
not really necessary. It's just,
What?
Oh, just so you have something there?
yeah, see, in other words, in a normally truly unauthorized box, you're not going to have A5 sitting there. It's going to have service ID
0
none.
0.
Normally, in factory condition, it would say none.
Here, I'll show you. Set up 5 62 47. Enter 0 0. Enter. Set up 1. 0 D. Then up 5 6 2 2 3. Enter 0 0. Enter. Here you go. Okay.
There.
Set up 5 6.
So what we're trying to do is make it think it is.
Well, what we're
Go ahead.
basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to put the box into a state right now that it believes everything's healthy and it'll take a good hit with no problem.
Otherwise, if let's say your dish is marginal, your signal is not so swift, the first hit coming down, it may not register every single byte.
And it might not be enough.
There might not be enough to make it work, and then you've got to wait for the second.
One of the ways that you can tell if your board is an 0181 clone is with what they call the RAM-View chip. Okay? The RAM-View chip would install in a standard socket and would allow you to display the entire contents of U20 on your screen. Now I want you people to realize that if you put a stock chip in your board to check to see what the ID number is, you're going to wipe out the information that's put in U20 to allow the clone to work. That's why it's important that you use a RAM view. The reason that you would utilize a RAM view is because it does not affect the U20 area in any way, shape, or form. What you see is what you get, but it does not step on any of those areas or locations like a normal stock chip would.
What will you see, though, when you look at it?
All right, once you've recorded all this data on the screen, you can go to high order RAM, about location 6500, 6600, and you'll see the seed key data that has been encrypted. And you possibly might be able to look at 6235, 6236, 37, and 38 and see what the real ID number is. Normally what happens when you put a stock chip in there, the ID number is erased because the first thing it does when it powers up is extract the ID number and put it into U20 in those areas. So if you use any other chip than a RAM view, you're going to step on those areas and it's not going to work anymore. You're going to have the wrong ID number. So that's something to remember. Yet in some regards it takes a little longer to get going, per se, in a 0181 clone atmosphere than it does a normal box. Because of those computations are being done outside of U7, it takes a little longer. So, I mean, the processor U19 is already bogged down with BS. It's now bogged down with the DES algorithm that is normally computed in U7. So that sometimes takes a little longer. That's why the wizard technology is very quick, because it doesn't need that long time to lock up. So, is that it?
Well, you've seen cloning. It's pretty impressive. You manufacturers and distributors, and particularly you programmers, should recognize that you all are participating in this great farce. You all are making General Instruments richer every day. And for what reason? Don't you think they should have to answer to some of you? Why is this happening? Why is the VideoCipher so easily compromised? As long as you don't ask that question, as long as you don't force them to come clean, and as long as you don't take them to court for taking your money and everybody else's for a product that only person's making any money on it is them and some chippers, till you do that, you're going to keep on paying them out. They're going to keep on taking that money to the bank. They had the best year of their life last year, and you helped make it for them. Well, if all this cloning wasn't bad enough and confusing enough, let me now introduce you to the wizard technology. Now, brother, if cloning didn't scare General Instruments, I can assure you that this technology does. Because with this installed in the VideoCipher, you no longer need seed keys. You no longer need an identification number. The person that owns this chip simply, every month or every other month or every 4 months, depending upon how General Instruments is sending the data stream, loads it in from their front panel very simply, and the chip turns on everything that he authorizes it for via the information he sends in through the front panel. Here's a better explanation of it.
You're doing it again?
like to talk to everybody out there about a little bit is the keyboard wizard. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure that the programmers out there realize, you know, that this is a definite problem. And if you'd like to see this, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be glad to show it to you. Okay. Keyboard wizard. As you probably saw on an earlier tape, or they might edit in some of it, it does not need an authorization mask. It does not need a monthly key. It does not need an ID number. Basically what it does is you feed it what it wants to see to begin with, or what it tries, a normal box tries to make, is what they call the working key. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I've been called a liar. I've been told this is a clone. And what I'd like to do is show that they're full of stuff, I guess you could say. First of all, the keyboard wizard, as you're familiar with, as you can see from the standard screen here, this is a setup 0 screen, which shows the top line is the working key. Setup 9 allows you to key in the working key. And setup 8 allows you to key in the service ID. Understand that for every service ID, there's a different working key. Okay? The other thing that's important to know is that every service ID also has a month code in correspondence with its working key. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this board, I'm going to put in one of my repair chips, and I'm going to let you view every section of U20 RAM on the screen to prove that this is not a clone. And I'm going to go to low order memory, and I'm going to start with location 6000. Now, as you can see, this is an 0181 board that's been dorked, and you can see the true ID number. Nothing. Zip. Zilch. I know you say, I can put anything I want up there, but now I will show you all of U20 RAM. 6000. If you want to, please feel free to put on a VCR at this time. And what you can do is look at every individual section of this so that you can show that I'm not full of stuff. Shit.
So what are they looking at now?
What I'm doing is I'm showing all the information in regards to U20 RAM. And what I'm doing is I'm allowing the experts out there to actually see that this is not a clone.
Where would the ID number have been on this? If it was an ID, if there was an ID number?
I'll show that to you in a moment. This is location 6100. You say, I can put the monthly keys and the authorization mask elsewhere. Well, I shall continue.
Wait, where should they have been there on 6100?
Okay, I'll show it again. Basically, right after the alpha 524 3853 1308, you would have your authorization mask, your monthly key, and the pay-per-view bytes, etc.
But they're not there.
That's correct.
And you're taking in these increments so that you go all the way up.
Right.
So the next one you're going to do is 7180.
That's correct.
Because you're up to 617F. So the next one is
6180.
now the next one will be 61
Charlie 0.
Charlie 0, right? Now if there was an ID in the product, it would have to appear.
Well, actually, the normal ID is downloaded when you power up to location 6235, 36, 37, 38, and 39.
Where else can it be hidden in the U20? It has to be in a U20, right?
Well, if I show you every area of U20, there's no reason why you would doubt this.
Go ahead. That's what I'm trying to get at. How many areas are there? How high will we go?
67FF.
We're going to be here for about a while, folks. Just go through them faster.
I can only push the buttons so quickly. If you guys want to continue to call out the numbers, I'll be glad to. 62 Charlie 0?
Yeah. 62.
6300.
300, yeah. 6340. 6380. 63 Charlie. 6400. 6440.
Oops.
6480. 64 Charlie. 6500.
You guys, you can see it pretty well flies once you get it going.
6540. 6580. 65 Charlie. 6800. 6600, sorry.
Hey, looks like a message is in there. 65 what?
6600.
6600?
Yeah. 6640.
Oh, shouldn't show that one too long.
What was that? 6640,
Well,
go ahead. We'll talk about that later. 6680. 66 Charlie. And 6700.
I'm going to show you how a wizard chip works and how it gets around a lot of the BS. As you remember before, okay, U20 data was sent to U7 to build the common monthly key. Okay? But because a wizard already has this information, you've given it the information, i.e. the front keypad, you don't have to worry about all this bullshit. Now, here's where the trick comes into place. When the channel key comes in, it's recalculated. Then sent with the common monthly key, then sent to U5, and then to U4. Now, let me tell you what happens. Let me tell you why it's recalculated. What happens is they make sure that U7 comes up with a common monthly key, okay, of zeros. And I'll tell you why. Since they know that the common the common monthly key is X, and they know that the value in U7 is now 0 because in the new U7s, GI very generously makes that way if it sees any type of tampering situation. And in the old U7s, it's very easy to zero the common monthly key area, which is registers 2 to 8. Well, what they do is, since this is a known value, what the true common monthly key is, and since this is a known value, they recalculate knowing those values and change what the channel key data is that's sent to U7 as a part of the final calculation. Now what happens, it comes with the correct resultant that's sent to U5. And this is the way that the wizard chip works. A lot of people are also familiar in regards to where people clone an 0181 board in an 0181 atmosphere, meaning that the ID number in this 0181 board is 01811234, but in reality the ID of the board is 018 alpha 5678. What they're doing is they're doing the same thing in regards to using this calculation method, but they're allowing all this data that normally stores up in U20 to happen, and doing the calculations outside of U7 in regards to the DES algorithm. I know that was very abrupt and very brief, but that's basically how those 0181 clones are working in an 0181 atmosphere. I thank you.
Well, do you want to play with your computer? Do you want to play with the VideoCipher? Do you want to not even buy a VideoCipher and just see how you can fool around with it? Well, you can now. There's a great program out there. And we're going to put this guy's telephone number up because I think he deserves some note. And take a look at this tape.
What I have here is a piece of software running on a PC computer that is really one of the best development tools available for VideoCipher hackers. This software is called a simulator, and in fact it simulates a complete VideoCipher in a PC. By the way, it's available from Hink Software at 313-662-2840 for about $42.50. It's an excellent piece of software. We're going to run it right now at the current program counter, and what this is doing is currently decrypting the keys so that it can get the audio on a VidCipher. And we're able to see the bits going through here at different addresses. Primarily we're looking at the 2000 and 4000 port on a VideoCipher, as well as at location 61, which actually is 62, 63, 64, and 65. We're looking at 61, 63 here, which is the current month's hits, and we see that it's calculated that we have a 64. And down here we're looking at the registers where it's actually decrypting the keys. These are the secret keys that are contained in U7 on a VideoCipher. We've let it run for a few moments because it's actually building up the current bytes for the month, and we'll stop execution at this point and just go into the examine memory feature here, and we're going to examine memory at 6163, which is in fact the actual address that this data is contained at in a VideoCipher. And we see the byte come up as C4233853130801 and F1. We now are getting into the authorization mask to tell us which channels it's authorized to. And we'll go through that and recognize immediately that there are no other stations authorized, just this F1 here. So then we come to 6171, and for the next 8 bytes, this will be the current month's turnoff. So we have 2 of them there, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The next byte should be 0, and it is. We'll have 3 zeros, and then we will have the current ID, the current month, which is the service ID of A5, and 23 for the current month. So that simply shows that this computer, after having conditioned RAM, is able to operate just exactly like a VideoCipher. Now we'll go back and execute the program at the current program counter and let it continue. Again, it's decrypting the keys, which currently are key 0 and key 2. Those are the keys that GI is using. And in fact, what this is, if we were to have some text messages come through now, they would come through here, and this program will decode the packed Fujitsu strings, or 6-bit code, as it's called. In fact, it simulates a complete VideoCipher with the exception of U7, but currently will operate the registers of U19, U30, and U20 RAM positions, and of course, separately, we can run the U7 position. We cannot run U7 and U20 and U19 at the same time for the simple reason that they both use the same address top down. They're 2 separate microprocessors. So we cannot have both of them at the same time. But we can see the port data going in and out, communicating between U24, U19, and U7. And of course, also U5 if we were to set it up for that address. So this is called a simulator, and it simulates a VC2 on any ordinary PC. In fact, it is part of the package that's included with the VideoCipher package from VideoCipher Technologies that basically will teach you how to turn on a box. of course, this offer is void where prohibited by law. We've recently just now hit an idle instruction, which is a 0-1, and we can go in and test what address we hit that idle instruction at. It will give us the PC, and we went to 0-4. So in effect, we changed something before, and the code went berserk. With this tool, you can actually see, in a much slower form, of course, not in real time, you can actually see a VideoCipher going through its routines to authorize, and in fact can tell when the VideoCipher has turned on. Because a simulator operates anywhere from 500 times to 1,000 times slower on a PC than in a VideoCipher, we can actually see what's happening.
In preparing this report, I've gone all over. I've been to Toronto, been to Montreal, I've been to the South, been to the West. I've even been to Acapulco. Now, there's a great deal of controversy about a summit that took place in Acapulco. The old chippers were down there. Well, there were a few. And what did they talk about? What did chippers think of all this? Well, number one, chippers would like to talk to you programmers. Every chipper I know is not in it for the money. He's in it to survive and make sure his fellow dealer survives. Now, you might think it's all wrong, that everyone's breaking the law. But really, think about what was their alternative. Leave the business? You know, you got to understand what you're dealing with here. You're not dealing with a typical type of guy that wants to work for somebody else, is interested in punching a clock, works 9 to 5, and is happy about it. You're dealing with a guy that got into this business to make a dollar, a fair dollar. He works hard. Probably most dealers work 80 hours a week. They've got the heart in this. They saw this as their way to not have to work for somebody else, to be an entrepreneur, to be a businessman. They never wanted to steal the programming. They just never wanted to leave this business, and there was no way to sell this programming or sell their services, their satellite equipment, without helping people steal the programming. People will not pay the money you want for that program because you want too much for it. Now, you can easily make 3 to 4 times what you're presently making off a subscription if you're willing to charge fairly for it. Now, you might have to go up against the cable monopolies to do that. But I think in the long run, everyone will recognize that we can coexist. Cable can exist with satellite, and satellite can certainly exist with cable. But we cannot give up. These people that are fighting you, these people that are stealing from you, are not going to give up. They haven't given up to date. And the fear of some FBI agent walking in on them, or him selling the box to the wrong guy, is not going to stop him. This is his last thing. This is it. This is the way he sees it. He's not going to quit. And you're not going to scare him into it. He's going to keep on stealing from you and justifying it by saying he has to if he's going to stay alive. And he is. You know, truthfully, that's the bottom line. I'm going to leave you with the real chippers of Acapulco.
I mean, here it is. Here I am. Call it free enterprise, call it freedom of the press, call it a horrible mistake, whatever. It doesn't. But this is America, you know. And we have something here that not every country has. Well, we have television. Okay, we got a lot of other things too. We have what? We have freedom of religion. We have freedom of democracy. We have like the right to vote. Now, these things are all a lot more important than a lot of people realize. Okay? Now, I heard, for example, the other day, that over 40% of our electorate hasn't even registered to vote. Now, is it that much of a hassle to register to vote? Well, I'm asking you, because I have...
The unit ID number is basically electric trash, and the service ID is C4. Okay?